Brian Saul, the chair, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome to the meeting of the Harwich Board of Appeals on this date. What is today's date? Excuse me?
March 26th.
March 26th. The purpose of this meeting is to hear and decide applications before the Board of Appeals which have been brought pursuant to the bylaw of the town of Harwich and the Massachusetts Zoning Enabling Act. As required by law, the town may audio or video record this meeting, which we are. Any person intending to either audio or video record this open session is required to inform the chair. And during this meeting, the chair will recognize promptly a member of the board, a secretary, to inform the chair if a protocol is not being followed. While in open session, those wishing to present comments or to ask questions regarding the case are required to fill out an information form on the podium, which is on the podium. So there's not quite a big crowd here tonight, so we probably won't have that happen. First order of business, before we call the case, I'd like to make a motion that for tonight's meeting, that Dave Nunnally be approved as the clerk. Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Dave, you are now the clerk. Okay, and Dave, why don't you call the first case tonight?
Case number 2025-14, Elizabeth Mobasala, in care of Gus de Alcantara, 11 Lake Street, Hudson, Mass., owner of the property located at 19 Shannon Road, Assessor's Map 41, Parcel T29, in the RR zoning district. The applicant seeks a special permit from 325-54A, non-conforming structures and uses, and 325-Attachment 2, Table 2, Area Regulations, and 325, Attachment 3, Table 3, Height and Bulk Regulations, to enclose a breezeway and raise and replace an attached garage on their pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling pursuant to the Harwich zoning bylaws 325-54 and MGL Chapter 40A, Section 6. The Harwich Planning, Conservation, and Water Departments submitted comments indicating they had no concerns. No other comments from other town departments or abutters were received.
Hey, thank you, Dave. Okay, I'd like to ask the applicant to introduce themselves and then to make your presentation to the board.
Yeah. Good evening, Gus de Alcantara. I'm working for Elizabeth and the husband, Munir. And yeah, they hired us to do a renovation. The house has been in disrepair for a little bit, almost 10 years to be honest. Like they had frozen pipe during a while. So the house actually said really eyesore on the street. They intend to renovate the house to be using, and the one of biggest point is like they have a daughter that she, due to special circumstances, she spends a lot of time with musical instruments, and she requires a little, not close, but like her own space. So for the time they have that in their home in Sudbury, and when they approached us to do the renovation, she was like, well, sounds like everybody in the street has turned the garage into a habitable space, and
Sure.
And then they would like to do it. One of the solutions we had was to get that corner of the house that we're, adding to the habitable space as the playroom, an extra bathroom. The house will be like modern. And me as a carpenter for 20 plus years, I looked at it and the foundation is very jigged everywhere, and I don't really know what's in there. And I was actually, there was one thing that I was talking to the inspector one day. He was like, maybe if this was cleaned out, we dig it out and do it again. And I was like, well, if I'm gonna do it again, I'd like to square it out. So that's what we're asking today. Yeah, I could square out the foundation and start over. It's gonna be a new roof line too, new structure. insulation, like to bring the house up to good standards.
Okay. Anything further you want to add to that? Just ask the
For
question.
now,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, so, I think the overall project is, my personal feeling is excellent.
Uh-huh.
But we have, from my perspective, and I'm just one member of the board here, we have one hurdle that I see here. And before I ask that question,
Yeah.
given approvals, what is your plans on starting construction?
Starting construction?
Yeah,
Yeah, if we're approved right away. I
okay,
would say, as soon as I got a permit, I want to start framing.
all right. Let me just- Okay. And seeing the lot, I'm assuming that you'll be able to maintain your vehicles on the property?
Yeah.
Materials and vehicles on the property?
Yeah, materials and vehicles, yes.
Okay, on the property, okay. So, I had the zoning enforcement officer, Rachel, send you, make sure you had it, a copy of the
Did receive it.
review, okay? Because I wanted to point out and make sure that you're aware of the fact that, it's, the main structures, as far as setbacks, everything is fine, but the final square footage on the building has created, would create, right now, your building coverage is conforming. And it's at 12.8 or something percent.
It is right now.
Okay. It's under 13%. The plans are submitted, and it shows in your documentation, the building coverage would now become 15.5%, all right?
Which I may add out, I wasn't aware that I was gonna be 0.5% over that.
So basically, that's creating a new nonconformity, which, I don't see there's any problem getting a special permit regarding what you want to do for raise and replace, but in creating a new nonconformity, that would cause a variance, and you'd have to make a presentation as to what the hardship was that, to the land, topography, or whatever, et cetera, why a variance is needed to overcome a hardship caused by the land. And pretty much, I think, in looking at the plans, the front porch,
Yeah,
which is 5 by 30, you really need to knock off 50 square feet, okay, which now takes that porch to 5 by 20, approximately.
24-ish. I got the message from Rachel yesterday, and I had the architect run it.
Yeah,
I just, the site surveyor, outermost, they asked me a week to give me the new site plan. It's just that
right.
I'm okay with that. I don't wanna,
Okay, I understand. So, basically, that's my thoughts on it. And in my opinion, until we have a new site plan, and showing that it's going to be, because I have to stamp, the chair has to stamp the documents, and currently the only documents we have are showing, I can't approve and stamp, plans that are on 5 by 30. I need to have a new plan in front of me to stamp that, okay? And at a meeting, and go over that. So, basically, I don't feel that, from my point of view, that we could, one, provide a variance tonight for the 5 by 30 for the 15.5%, and I would have to continue the meeting to the April meeting, which, again, would probably be very quick to meet, give the approval, and you're good to go.
believe it.
That's my point of view.
Is there a way that you can just retrain me, allow me to work, but keep me to, I got the plans right here. It's just that, it's on short notice. I didn't,
I understand.
maybe it's my learning curve. It's just that the owner is being waiting forever, and I don't look any better any day goes by. I understand all of this, it's just, it takes people word, it's not, I get it. It's just that if there's a way of, you could even say no porch, apply for a porch later, I don't know.
I did do that once before,
Uh-huh.
and then I was informed by the town council that you
Uh-huh.
can't do it that way, unfortunately.
Why,
So unfortunately, we, in my opinion, and we get other board members here, I'm not the, the only horse, would have to, wait for approval on the project until the April meeting, for continued. So then we can have plans showing that you're in compliance and you haven't established a new nonconformity. So that's my point of view. I can take them here. John?
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to agree. I think, you're, in order to approve it as is, you're talking a variance, not a special permit that you're talking about here. So, and I think we need the final documents to approve the documents.
And if you have those final documents and they're showing you're at 15% for the building coverage, then it wouldn't be a variance. We strictly would be
Special
looking at a
permit.
special permit. Now, we can, certainly, the whole board can discuss here tonight, so you know whether or not, we're in favor of a special permit, so I don't want you walking out of here with an unknown factor. So we can do a straw vote tonight, and the board can review that, this current board of these 4 members, we normally have 5, but one is not here tonight, and give, a straw vote as far as on the special permit situation, which is what you applied for. But I don't see, from my point of view, and obviously John's, going for a full approval.
just
tonight.
approach it?
Sure,
I'll show you this.
sure.
This is the
Yeah.
latest. And it shows
Yeah.
But it's just,
And we understand.
I get it.
We have to stamp something an approval, unless you can show a hardship for the topography or the land.
Which I don't think you're gonna be able to achieve in that neighborhood.
Well, a hardship for the
Yeah.
parents. Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah.
But we're now showing a plan here, and
Yeah.
this is showing that 15% where you reduce the size of the porch?
that's what the calculations were based on the thing, but like I was like, why do I find out through my ZBA?
Yeah, it would have to be about a 5x20 porch, right? To meet
Yeah,
that.
it could be 20, I don't,
Yep.
they told me 24 or 25 should, I just.
Well, I actually don't think that's correct.
I don't think that's enough.
I don't think that's enough. It needs, currently a porch is 150 square feet.
Uh-huh,
When I did the math
okay,
of the 15.5 versus 15, you were 50 square feet over,
Yeah.
okay,
which is 5 by 10. So you'd have to have a front porch of 5 by 20.
can I do?
They shrunk it to four feet, 6 inches, though.
Oh,
They
so-
shrunk it to 4 feet, 6 inches
Oh, on the width?
on the width, yeah.
Oh, okay, that's different.
I
Okay.
didn't see that too.
All right.
Anyways, I was wondering if if they accounted this, because this is not.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
I'm not
I said, I
applying
think
for it,
it's-
but I thought that
I mean,
maybe
that's, I was gonna actually ask if you could do a special
I
permit
thought that
with a
maybe
condition, but it sounds like that's what.
So this isn't there currently?
no,
Yeah,
it's not
I
there.
gotta stamp
Hey,
the
Brian.
documents.
Yeah.
I don't have a phone.
Do you guys know that he's saying that this rear porch is not there?
No, this is okay.
But what he's saying, is
I
this,
don't have it.
it's
Yeah,
not,
yeah, but this, okay,
Is it
just so
there?
you know, on building coverage,
Uh-huh,
because this is in the area.
okay,
Yeah.
on building coverage,
okay,
they can keep this deck. All right, because the deck isn't covered, which means that goes towards, the deck goes
but I
towards,
have a roof.
right, the deck goes towards site coverage,
But not building.
because it doesn't have a roof. So that, the square footage of this deck is calculated in your site coverage, which you're all set with site coverage. You have a roof here,
I understand.
so the 50 feet has got to come off a building structure that has a roof, which at this point, the simplest scenario is to take
50 feet out of it.
taking 50 feet out of that. But you don't have to worry about the deck. The deck can come, you can probably even go for a bigger deck in the back. I mean, I don't know what your site coverage is at the moment, but that isn't the problem.
The problem is the roof.
The roof over here.
And as, even if I said anything, you don't have it in paper, so we have to.
Yeah, because I mean, what the process is he stamps it, then it has to be
Goes to town.
registered by the town clerk, then it has to be available for people to review and object, so that, you know, there has to be documents that could be presented, and then there's a waiting period.
Yeah.
But I think what Brian's trying to infer is, and we have to talk about it, but should you move that down the 50 feet, I think we'd all be okay with the plan, so in April,
Yeah, I don't think there's
Yeah,
anything,
then you'd be talking a special permit.
good to
Yeah,
go.
this is- this-
Special
thi-
permit, you guys are.
this will not be an issue.
Yeah.
I can't, well, I haven't heard from you, Dave, yet.
Yeah.
What,
Well,
Yeah.
in a struggle, I think I'd be okay with it.
you're okay, you're accepting the special permit on the project, or do you have any questions on that?
No, I'm good with that. The one thing I'm looking, when do you have to have the papers in for April? It's typically like right around now.
April 2nd.
April 2nd.
No, it doesn't, he doesn't need it. All he needs is prior to the meeting, we need to have a new site plan.
So just at any time prior?
If we
so he
continue,
would-
if we agree.
Do a
we'll continue.
continuance.
Oh, okay, all right.
So all we gotta
Yeah,
do,
so-
we're gonna do, I would do a motion tonight for a continuance. Done deal. At that point, the plans need to be in front of us prior to the meeting.
The next meeting's April 30th.
April
April 30th.
30th?
Yeah.
Right.
Now, I will tell you, again, you mentioned that, because I've been through the process myself, you're talking at least 40 days from the meeting to getting your permit. So you'd be talking early June before you'd have the permit, you know, just to set expectations, right, you know, with your client. Because you've got to, it has to be
I know
available.
You guys need a little time for the letter and get.
Well, like I
Well,
said, it has to be posted by town clerk, then it has to be available for 3 weeks for people to review or object to the process and everything. And then after that period is over, you have to go record it, or the owner, someone has to go record it at land court, bring it back to register it. So, you know, given all those, you know,
You're
when you've got
looking-
those out, theoretically, it could happen as fast as 30 days,
I understand.
but realistically, it's probably gonna be 40 days.
Now, what you can do is, send in your new plans as soon as you can to Rachel, who's the zoning compliance officer. I'm gonna be gone until 15th, 12th of the month, or I'm back on the 13th or so, 14th. We can take, you know, we'll both take a good look at it, make sure you're all set, so that there won't be surprises for April. And if there's any issues, we'll inform you right away. So whenever you get the plans in, she'll look at them and say, yep, you're in, the main thing is that your site surveyor has to certify that you're 15% or less. That's all we're looking for.
And right now, for what.
You're at 15.5.
Yeah, what it looks like, it's not even enough what may have happened here.
Right. So she's gonna look at the plans. We always never doubt what the registered land surveyor is saying.
Yes, yeah.
He says you're at 15%, you're good to go, that's all she's gonna care about. So once you know you have plans that are showing at 15% or less for building coverage from the surveyor, she's gonna be good to go, this board's gonna be good to go. And everything else about the property and what you wanna do, and looking at the neighborhood, and, you know, I think there's no issues, there's no, I think it fits in fine, the neighborhood, the project looks great. All we need to do is get that building coverage under 15% or less. And again, just a reminder, the deck is fine. Deck stays, it's whatever's covered comes under the building coverage.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay, and just
I
before,
actually did have one question regarding the
Yeah.
project. On the, and this wouldn't change my vote on the straw vote, but given the small lots and the proximity of the houses to each other, and the stated reason for the playroom to be music, are they gonna put any sound batting?
It's,
In that room,
my
so-
plan is, so this is not, I don't have any, I wouldn't have a statistic showing, but like, it's gonna be, foam insulated, and My finding is that it dams the sound a lot.
Right.
I've taken houses that, you know, unfortunately caught on fire. This is not a good experience.
Yeah.
Caught on fire, the thing was completely engulfed on the inside.
Yeah.
We ripped the plywood off. If it wasn't for the part where the firefighters cut a hole to go through, you wouldn't even tell. And I had to scream from the top of my lungs for the guys just below me
Yeah.
to hear me. And we had no plywood or none. I had to actually cut the insulation. So answering your question,
Yeah.
I think it should be sufficient.
Yeah.
And from what I hear, because we just did the windows on their house in Sudbury, and I couldn't hear. I don't know if we're busy working.
Yeah, like I said, it's basically quarter acre lots here. The other house isn't that far away. You know, sometimes I agree that the foam insulation works pretty good, but
I
textured
could
wall
agree.
surfaces on the inside too,
You know,
usually.
I could go to the extent of
Yeah.
putting homosoap before I
Yeah.
put drywall. It's,
Yeah.
We've done.
Again, it doesn't affect, it was just more of a
Yeah, I know, it's just-
curiosity question with,
It's just a thought for you, the later on,
Yeah.
getting along well with the
yeah,
neighbors.
getting along with the
Didn't think of
neighbors.
that, but
Yeah.
now that you're bringing
Yeah.
it up, it's
Yeah.
not that hard
Yeah.
to take the preventive steps.
Right.
That way the whole neighborhood's happy and won't be any issues coming forward. So, just a couple of quick formalities here. It's, so we can get to, I don't believe there's any of the public that wants to make any comments,
Doesn't look like it.
and there is nobody in the public.
Yeah.
It's, so, I think, just give the gentleman, we, as far as, in next month, maybe a different, we have other members of the board, we're missing it tonight, so there'll be perhaps a different five, but definitely if these four, myself included, are at the next month's meeting, and I suspect we will be, all right? So the four of us will be voting, and plus one other person. It only requires four people to say, members to say yes, you know, so I just want to point that out. But, and just want to do, if we have a straw vote, do we see any reason why we would not be granting a special permit?
I'd be in favor.
Okay.
In favor.
All right, so that'd be fine. So you're all set there, and at this stage here, I think we'll, I don't even think I need to have to close public, open meeting. We're just gonna, at this point, make a motion. And I'd like to make a motion that, regarding case number 2025-14, 19 Shannon Road, is to be continued until the April meeting, so the applicant can revise the site and building plans to make the building coverage conforming. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Second is, okay. That's John. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
We have your continuance, and that'll be for April. And again, just get, when you're ready, the plans to Rachel, particularly, you'll need to revise the site plan, and also whatever page you have on this that shows the porch on the building plans. So you needed that, that needs to be revised, and the site plan needs to be revised, and show the fact that the registered surveyor is showing it at 15% for building coverage.
Understood. Well,
Okay,
gentlemen,
thank you.
thank you very much.
Have a good
Appreciate
evening.
it, huh? You have a good evening.
Good night.
You too.
Well, maybe we'll get you another night where there's more to do as clerk, so you can really show your stuff.
Throw it out there.
You never know what's gonna be to.
The last couple meetings here, I thought maybe it was just the first one in the door after you got the,
No, I contacted Dave early in the week, let him know that he had this mountain of responsibility, and I thought you did quite well.
Thank you.
Yeah?
Okay, now, I have to apologize, gentlemen, that in my week here, I did not read the minutes from last month, which I'd like to just take a moment just to go through it. I don't know if you all, and see if there's any issues, then I'd like to call for, so let's, just want to make sure that's squared away. Doesn't have to be on a month, I don't read them in this, well,
Longest
when
one.
there's 45 cases. Oh, wait a minute. Let me know you guys are ready.
Looks good to me.
Tim, are you ready?
Yep, I think we're
Okay.
good.
All right, I realize I probably could have done a more thorough thing, but I believe the I don't have any corrections to the minutes. Does anybody else?
I do
Nothing
not.
I can see. Nope.
Okay. So, I'd like to make a motion, we approve the minutes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right. Few things, just want to go over between new and old business. All right, so, gentlemen, we have this month on this particular case here, as you recall, last month, we had the marathon session, I had prepared in advance a memo or memorandum of all the documents and findings, projected findings of conditions and so forth, based upon the documentation that had been submitted, prior to the meeting. And that, I thought we all agreed, that helped help us through the meeting fairly quickly. And I think the Attorney Kroll particularly liked it and so forth. So, since then now, in working Rachel, who's, continues to do a, phenomenal job, she felt it was best that, considering my time as well, ahead of time, do the same memo up front, for the board, doing the listing of all the application and hearing documents and the record, and the projected, based upon what was submitted to date, as of, she had it, the recommended findings and conditions, which we have on this new document. So going forward in all your cases, the site summary that she gives, it's been enhanced what you already have in the past as far as project history, and to review existing and, existing and conformities and nonconformities, but is also will include all the findings and facts. These will be going to the attorneys or applicants up front, so they have it. I'll always have extra copies, an extra copy or two of each, on each case, because if we have an abutter, that somebody who is objecting, they may want to see all the information. So we're trying to avoid having to read all the stuff into the record. And since this becomes a matter of the record, make that matter of the record, we're all set, and everybody can just look at it, yep. And then if another document comes in during the meeting, we add to it, and we can rip through all that stuff fairly quickly. We've also, the information typically is on the recommended findings will generally be mainly information on site coverages or whatever it might be that is non-conforming, that has to be considered. But if something's conforming, we're not gonna spend the time listing it, so, which I didn't, So, is everybody, if you're happy, everyone happy with this? Any suggestions to approve it?
No.
Okay, all right. Okay, good. Had a brief discussion today with Christine, the building director, the building department, director. And the ADUR is being revised. I did have a draft copy of it, which since then it's being looked at further. But basically, we know we have the new state guide, the state did for 900, allowing up to 900 feet or down in their conditions. Going forward, we just talked about it here, the existing ADU law that Harwich had passed a year or so ago, showing upwards to 1,000 square feet. Okay, and the state law requires, on a conforming lot, requires to have conforming setbacks. Well, 3/4 of our town is not conforming, and a lot of these people who do ADUs aren't gonna have a prayer of getting the setbacks. Okay, we still have the opportunity, if we could do it, look at it for variance and so forth. So the town, the building department and the planning department and so forth, and they get me looking at keeping the current code or revising things, so, and revising the current code so that people with non-conforming lots and they want to go up to 1,000 feet perhaps, and that's being looked at, and we're gonna be able to have, 2 codes in town. All right, to help do that.
So they're talking about allowing people to increase their nonconformities, or just to create the ADU within existing nonconformities?
Within existing, well,
Which is what the
obviously,
Galen
if someone's got a non-conforming setback,
Yeah.
as long as they can intensify it, as long as it's not a detriment
Yeah,
to
then you get
neighbors.
back to the Gale and Dietrich cases where
Right.
they can do it anyways, right? Yeah,
Right, on a non-conformity.
yeah.
So, and I'm not totally clear where the state codes lands on that,
Yeah.
okay? But currently, I believe it'd be fine, but the issue is at hand, over half the cases, wait a minute, 40% of the cases or so that we've had so far in ADUs in the last year have been people looking for over 900 feet. So let's say there's been 15, there's like 8 or 9 of them have been under 900 feet or less, and, and 6 or 7 of them have been over 900 feet. So, I raised the issue, let's stick with the current code
Yeah.
and make sure people can do 1,000.
Yeah.
Why not?
I mean, it seems like the state established a minimum. Towns can allow higher than that, right?
Yes, but as long as, we have to work on the code. So we have a code in place right now, and they're looking at that. The other suggestion that I point out to them, and if the board doesn't agree, I'll let Christine Flynn know, that if people are going under 900 feet or less, the state allows you to rent out both parcels. And you don't have to have an owner on site. But the renting out has to be, I believe, if the town has the correct laws in place, the town can restrict it to be 6 months or greater, not less. So you can't have, the suggestion I made was that our current code was that if people are looking for the 1,000 or whatever, that at that point, we can still, what we have right now, continue to say an owner has to be in resident of one of the units. And they can't rent them both out, they can rent out one of them. Doesn't matter which one. All right? The other suggestion I made, because I feel the fact when people transfer property, they may not know what the rules and regulations are for renting in town, that if it's an ADU and they're restricted at 6 months or more to rent it out, that actually it be updated on their deed. So that when they're passing papers, everyone knows that there's a deed restriction of renting out the properties for less than 6 months. Okay? So it doesn't, it's, you want the privilege of going with an ADU. So, does anyone disagree with that approach?
Yeah.
Okay, because if you don't, I mean, that's great. I mean, I'll let Christine know.
No.
Okay, all right. Okay. All right, I sent you guys all today, as I said at the last meeting, at least for me personally, I've had at least, over the last few years, one or more cases when I was thinking about, is this a substantial detriment or not?
Yep.
And all I had to go by was, from the famous decision by a Supreme Court justice, I don't know, I can't define it, but I know it when I see it.
Yep.
So what I worked on and sent you guys, copies today, was a memorandum that I put together regarding substantial detriment. And I think
I haven't had a chance to read it.
okay, so, yeah, we
I
can,
was at a conference all day. I saw Chris's response, but
sure. Yeah, I responded back to him. Again, this isn't, so I did some research, I'd asked around, and no one could give me a definition of how to approach substantial detriment. And so I did a little research and came up with this evaluation of review of substantial detriment. And so this isn't anything we have to, looking at you guys to vote on and so forth. This, again, determining substantial detriment, it's not a quantitative, it's a very subjective analysis. So there isn't like, it isn't like a setback's 20 feet, well, they're at 19.9, sorry. You know, there's nothing definitive, you draw the line as far as, as far as that, so it's up in the air. And I felt the fact when I put this together, I sent it to town council, and Amy Questle, approved it. She made a few changes, not many, what I had sent her, but she tightened up a couple of things regarding this. So we don't need to get into discussion here tonight, so forth. I just wanted to present it to you, and we get it later on. But when I did my research, try to define what substantial detriment was, what key factors to consider in looking at substantial detriment, and there may be others that members of this board may have, and then how I thought it might apply to variances and special permits. And in looking things up, I found some case law, which Amy, Attorney Questle, said in an email back to me that she would send me more case law examples that both supported or rejected what the ZBA did regarding substantial detriment. So they might have, the case law might be up, the courts upheld what the ZBA did, or case law where the courts did not upheld. So just things of, just to, we can take a look at. We've, when the lights go down a little bit, does this mean that our time's almost up? How does that work?
No, I think it's more of a motion thing.
No big deal, we can, just so the lights went down here a little bit, I don't, maybe it's telling me I'm talking too long.
I was gonna say, if they go off, it's a sign, Brian.
It's a bad, so, I even came up with a case that, Bradford versus zoning board of appeals of Eggertown, where it was upheld, even though the client was going to have the building height within reason. Well, I mean, per the zoning law, which I was surprised I just came up with this, but because of the size of the project and the height, the board determined that it was going to be a detriment to the neighborhood, even though they hit a lot of the conforming factors of the town's requirements. I find that a tough one to work with, but it's there, okay?
Well, I mean, I have to admit for myself, when I go visit, the neighborhoods, that's sort of what I'm looking at. I mean, not to draw too many, but like the case tonight, I mean, they're all single-family ranch-style homes, right? If someone was looking to demolish it and build some 2.5-story,
I'd have a problem with that.
McMansion, to me, that's not that neighborhood, right?
Right.
That could be a substantial detriment, even though it may raise property values. You're talking about something that's totally different in the neighborhood versus, I think we had a case probably a year or so ago down in the campground area where someone was adding a second floor, and honestly, you drive down the street and every house has a second floor, right?
Right.
So it's like, how do you say no to this person? All the other neighbors have it, right? So, to me, it's more like, does it fit in? So I can almost see this thing in Edgartown, which is a big historic, destination, community and everything. If someone wanted to build a McMansion next to a bunch of cottages, even if it was conforming, you'd be like, guys.
Yeah, so
I feel like we did. Obviously, I'm never gonna pull the case, but I remember there was a rather large structure. I think they had a pool as well, and I remember the abutters came up, and it wasn't a densely populated area in Harwich. Do you remember? It was by the water. There was like a,
Ocean Drive.
I remember
Shore
driving
Drive.
down, and it was, I don't remember the exact
Oh,
area.
I know what you're talking
Yeah.
about. No, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Is, one of the streets near that abuts the ice cream place. It was one of those, off 28,
Oh, yeah, right off of Neil Road.
Neil
When
Road.
it pulls off to the right.
Right, Neil
That
Road.
house with the pool, that's right, yeah.
And that was
Right
much
by-
larger,
yeah,
and we
yeah.
approved it, and then we had a couple of butters that were like, this area was all small houses, and we want to keep it as such, and there's a part of me, I remember that case, because I'm
Yeah.
like,
I remember
yeah,
now.
it is much bigger, and
Yeah.
what are we doing? I think it was on the board for
Well,
like
like
a
I
year.
said, I think,
Yeah.
I mean, there's, like I say, it's subjective, there's so many
Yeah,
factors,
yeah.
right? Like, I mean, again, I was kind of like, like, this is quarter acre,
Right, yeah, yeah.
if everybody had an acre lot and someone wanted to build a bigger, you're like, all right, it's a lot different,
Well, one thing I read on the substantial detriment in that case, like on Edgartown, is the fact of saying, hey, we don't want the street to all be torn down and lose
Yeah.
house values at this number.
Right, yeah,
If all of a sudden, the whole neighborhood goes to
Right.
2.5-story buildings,
yeah,
suddenly,
Yeah.
it's not affordable
yeah.
to a lot of people.
Right. In that area down there that I was speaking, the properties were spread out, it wasn't densely populated, everyone had big land.
And like this street here tonight, that, we did here tonight, there's a neighborhood which it comes across as probably, more affordable than most.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it turns into McMansions.
Yeah.
Now the character of the neighborhood starts getting changed.
Yeah.
And, anyways, my thoughts here on doing this memo, and to try to write down at least my thoughts for discussion, just kind of like a process, or at least a discussion point, that perhaps a little bit more to work with than what we have right now. It just says, well, substantial detriment, good luck to you, figure it out on your own.
That's, as I was looking at that, I was like, good luck to you guys moving forward, because this is gonna be the problem in the next couple of years.
Yeah, yeah.
As we can't move over, we only move up. So it's gonna happen, right? Maybe
Yeah,
5 years from now,
and
you know?
I would say that so I'm not looking to find an example I'm not looking to turn anyone down for substantial detriment. I just want to be able to say, okay, I mean, we had a case recently, and you brought up the fact that they were putting on an extra half a story, and the lot was already built up.
Right, yeah,
And I was thinking like, boy, I don't know what to do with this,
yeah.
Yeah,
That was the one where
yeah.
the
And-
house was already built on the high point. in the-
And I was looking at the next door neighbor coming up and saying like, God, he's just gonna have a wall.
Yeah,
I was borderline on bringing up substantial detriment on that. Then I was held back a little bit because, well, based upon the average grade, he was still at 30 feet.
I mean, that's why I asked whether it was natural on that one.
Yeah.
Right, is to say, if previously they had intentionally built up the lot to perch the house higher, and now you're going even higher, well, yeah, maybe it's at grade, but it's not at grade in the neighborhood.
Right.
It's an artificial grade, but it was hard to determine there.
Had I known about
Yeah,
this case in Edgartown,
yeah,
it might have swayed my vote.
yeah, yeah,
And I think it might have even swayed yours.
yeah, yeah, no, I mean, it was a tall house already.
Yeah, so the question is, was it was a detriment to the guy next door? Was that height a detriment for the rest of the neighborhood?
Yeah.
Because the rest of the neighborhood went down and.
Well,
some of
I
it
think
went
that's
back
the other
up.
thing too, is it's not
It's not just the next door
just
neighbor,
the neighbor, it's the neighborhood.
neighborhood,
You know,
So anyways, something to just to look at, to absorb a little bit, but the,
Speaking of the neighborhood discussion, as I was at the conference, the folks from Wausau was there, and they have not moved forward with that project yet. They're still,
they withdrew it.
you know,
It's been withdrawn.
as of totally, yeah, they're reevaluating. But they did some other renovations that didn't require any variances, but, yeah.
I didn't realize the extent of power that that commission had on development.
Yeah. No, I'm not talking, you're talking Witchmere.
Well, I'm talking Richmond.
I'm talking Wausau, the one we heard at Wausau.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, Wausau hasn't done that project that we approved, that there was a lawsuit over. They just, it's not that they're not gonna do it, they just are holding off.
Are they really?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, at least for another season, they said.
Oh. No, so, I'm sorry, I'm
Yeah.
thinking about,
Yeah, you're thinking the Witchmere. yeah.
Witchmere.
That went before the Cape Cod Commission.
That's been
this week-
withdrawn.
This past week, yeah,
they withdrew that.
yeah,
At first, they got turned down by the subcommittee,
yeah.
and then,
I think they were basically told it wasn't gonna get approved as
and
presented.
then they
so
withdrew it.
They pulled it, yeah.
I learned how that works, and, we'll end the meeting shortly here, but the Cape Cod Commission was formed, I guess, in 1992 or,
Already 5 years ago.
whatever. And so any construction in town on the Cape that involves 10,000 square feet or more has to go through their commission. So if you've got an industrial property, you wanna put up a warehouse, even though you're not on the water, you're not on a flood zone,
Yep.
you still have to submit your building plans to, if it's 10,000 feet and one, or whatever, or you have to submit your building plans to the Cape Cod Commission. And if they say no, it cannot be overridden by the town fathers.
So that's a home,
Wow.
Barnstable County is a home rule county. It was established like 35 years ago under the home rule type of thing, so that
It's called
County-
home rule?
home rule.
Home.
So, yeah, the Cape Cod Commission has a lot more power as a county over, what happens in the Cape. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it would typically involve just, shoreline properties or, wetlands or,
Well, there goes my project.
I thought it was like an advice, like you.
Yeah, I did
They
too.
provide an advice, because I think
Yeah.
maybe that's what the subcommittee was. And then I only saw 1 hour, so when did the full committee vote?
They haven't.
Well, it was supposed to meet this week, but I think they withdrew it.
Yeah.
They withdrew before. Okay, so that's what you're saying, they knew that the full
They knew
committee.
the full
So
committee
once
was-
the full committee, all right. Yeah, because I thought it was like they would advise, well, you don't have our our recommendation to approve it on it.
No, it's
a
the
real, all right.
regulatory, basically. They can, it's not an advise and consent, it's like, it's yes or no.
Yep.
And then the town has no, obviously, the town had a say as far as what they want to do, and I know the planning department did a presentation to them as far as in support, I believe, of the project, because it would have been meaningful to the town, for a lot of reasons,
I mean, that's why not here, but, down in Yarmouth and into Barnstable, the extension of the rail trail with the whole trees had to be cut down, that had to go to Barnstable Commission, County Commission. Even though, I think partly because it spanned 2 towns,
Yep.
but partly because of the amount of disruption.
Yeah, and we had a case, I don't want to get into it.
I just learned last week, I actually met the guy that is the manager of the administrative side of the county a week ago, so I just got briefed on a lot of stuff myself, not that I knew it.
No,
2
it's
weeks ago,
cool.
I wouldn't have known this, but
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I didn't know anything about the home rule.
There's a sand and gravel operation in Harwich that actually, the building is in Harwich, the office is in the storage, where they put their trucks, but the rest of the property flows into Dennis,
S&J, right? Yeah.
okay? And there was an issue, this is, our first chair got a letter came in, and I passed it on, regarding what they were doing as far as sand and gravel removal, and the case got, presented, it became now the jurisdiction of the Cape Cod Commission, because it overlapped 2 towns, and so now they're basically taking charge of it. Okay. All right, so, anyways, take a look at this, again, it's meant to be, this isn't a rule, this is a process. Again, KP Law felt that what I've written was reasonable and followed a reasonable process, and they made some adjustments to it. But again, it really comes down to, it's subjective also. But at least, it's a list of things to consider, and we may want to add to it. And maybe if members of the board that don't want to consider it at all, that's fine. It's something I need to do for myself, and I'm passing on to everybody else.
I mean, I think the additional cases would be held. I mean, it was interesting reading the one in Nantucket, but I'd like to see,
Yeah.
4 or 5 different cases to get a feel for, is there a consistency? Is it totally inconsistent? Is it,
Yeah, and we need to have a, discussion as to what, you're looking at it, and, so that's about it. So, does anybody have any additional thoughts or things you want to bring up? That being the case, it's 7:25, and I make a motion, we close the meeting.
Also,
Second by Dave. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.